Hi, I'm April Bryan with Bryan Realty, and I'm so excited to have Karen Eskin from Organized Advantage with us today. We love their services and all that they have to offer. So, we're going to do a conversation today just about your business and wanted to understand how did you get started?
It was a collision of two worlds, actually. My kids were in preschool. The director of the preschool found out that I was very organized, came to me and asked me to create a library for them. I said yes, thinking it was ABC order, but there is a reason you can get a degree in library science. It took me about a year. I took a box of books home at night. They have a full database, they have labeled spines. It is a true library. It was about 5,000 books,
Wow,
and the Commercial Appeal did an article on it. At the same time, my best friend in town at the time was a real estate agent, and her friends were calling me constantly saying, I've got 1 hour before an open house. Should I clear the countertops in the kitchen or should I take the clothes off the floor in the master?
I know that feeling.
And so she was the one who looked at me one day and said, Are you just going to do this for everyone for free for your whole life? And I said, No one is going to pay me to do this. And she said, Yes, they are. And that was, of course, long before HGTV made it the cool thing to do. So after that, I started, and that was 20 years ago.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
And your team now, you've grown the team to how many people?
We have 10 people on the team now,
Okay.
and we've got a combination of lead organizers and assistants, plus, of course, all the ancillary back end business people as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
And walk us through the different, because I know you obviously provide organizing for homes, but could you run us through the different services that you guys offer?
Yes, so we are full service. We do everything from residential organizing, so what people normally think of kitchen cabinets, closets, master baths, bedrooms, attics, garages, and then we also do a lot of move management. So we do a lot of packing, we do a lot of unpacking, coordinating all of that. We do a ton of estate clearing. So when people are downsizing or someone has passed away and they need help clearing the home, we do that as well. Plus, we do staging.
I love that. And
Yeah.
from a staging perspective, walk us through, because I know some think staging means bringing truckloads of furniture in and staging an entire house, and then others think of it as using somebody else's items. Can you walk us through what staging means for you guys and your company?
Sure. So, because we're professional organizers and we are very conscious of everyone's stuff, quote unquote stuff, we try to stage with what the client already has. We usually combine that with a packing service so that we're not touching their items multiple times, and just helping them figure out how can we declutter and pare down. So staging for us is not only making the home beautiful, feel bigger, doing all the things that you all need it to do, but it's also providing a service of decluttering, culling down, packing, getting rid of. We've done staging jobs before where people have decided not to move because it looks so different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that. And so, obviously, as an owner, broker, real estate company, we involve you guys typically with a buy or a sell for our clients, but this is really applicable to everybody. It's not just somebody looking to buy or sell, because to your point, organizing a home, decluttering, so these services are not just for somebody who's in the middle of a real estate transaction.
Exactly. I tell people all the time that if even if they think they're planning a move 2 years, 5 years, now is the time to declutter and enjoy your space versus living in a cluttered household that probably is creating stress for people. And so we encourage paring down and decluttering, whenever people find themselves in a situation where their home is causing them stress because you know the funny thing that we say all the time as a group is Amazon is always going to keep coming. They're not going to stop. And what people don't realize is they don't have a system for it going out. So if Amazon is not going to stop coming, I mean, it's just the nature of the beast. We
Yeah,
just fill our homes until we can't move.
exactly. Have you been in my house?
No, I have not.
Did Michael tell you to say this?
No, he did not.
We have some of those challenges in our
Yes.
household, so I get it
Yes.
completely. But I think it's really important that everybody understands it's applicable to all households. It's
Absolutely.
not just during a real estate transaction. Um, I'm curious too, can you walk us through typically how someone would get started with you and then what the process looks like kind of from start to finish?
Sure. So typically, the hardest part for a client is making the initial phone call. People say, "Oh, I want to get organized. Oh, I want to declutter." But it is hard to make that first step. And it's especially hard thinking that people are going to come into your home. So the hardest part is that first phone call. So we first do a discovery phone call and get an idea of what the client perceives are the issues. Once we get through that discovery call, we make an appointment and I go out and actually meet with the client and look at their space. And so a perfect example is sometimes a client will call and tell me they want to do their attic. I get to their home and I'm walking through their home and I'm wondering why on earth we're going to work on their attic. Um, and so we look at the whole home. Even if somebody says, I want to do my kitchen, I have them give me a quick walk through their whole house. It gives me really great insight into how they live. So, do they tend to pile things? Do they tend to hide things behind closed cabinet doors? Does it not bother them and things are kind of random? So, we walk through the whole home, then we sit down together and we talk about what their goals are and what they see versus what I see. Sometimes they're completely aligned, and sometimes I'm sitting with the person that wants to do the attic, and I think that their time and effort would be better spent working on their inside of their home.
Mm-hmm.
So we do the consultation. When we sit down at the end of that consultation, not only do we compromise and figure out what we're going to do, but we plan out how we're going to do it. So some clients have bigger jobs and we're sending a full team for multiple days. Um, Other clients that are really leery about having people in their home, we might
Mm-hmm.
send two people for half a day. So it just really depends on what their goals are long term, what their budget is, how quickly they want to get things done. But once we have that consultation, we are getting them on the schedule and getting the team out there and helping them get organized.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about you've already hit on it a little bit, some sensitivities.
Yes.
Oftentimes everybody doesn't have great self-awareness,
Right.
and so they might not understand the living situation could be helped from an organization and decluttering perspective,
Right.
and you could help reduce their stress level. How do you handle those sensitivities when there's an elephant in a room and somebody doesn't see that elephant? How do you help them kind of see that elephant and you guide them along the way?
Well, I think the first key is knowing that most of the time, serious disorganization or chronic disorganization is a result of a trauma. So, on top of being leery of having someone in your home, a lot of the clients that we're working with have had a death, have had a divorce, have had kids and, multiple kids in just a few years. And so their priorities have shifted and changed, which is very, very normal. But then they get in a situation where they're stuck. They're
Hmm.
too far gone and they feel like even spending an hour or two is not going to make any progress. And so a lot of times we'll have a friend or someone encourage them to give us a call. And it's really, for me, everything we do is about the client. Everything we do is holding their hand to get them to where they want to be. And that's what I enjoy so much about the job. I would not have done that this long if I didn't have tears of joy at the end of a lot of them. Just because people sometimes it's their stuff, it's their home, it's their space, it's their business, and when we're busy like we are, you can't see the forest through the trees.
Hmm.
And so some people just think this isn't possible, and it's about holding their hand and walking them through the steps that we need to go through to get them to where they want to be.
Absolutely love that. Awesome. I have no doubt there are situations where people, after you've helped them, have said surprising things or shocking things. I'm curious about what were some of the most surprising or shocking things that came out of helping someone declutter or organize or pack or whatever service you offered.
So there's a lot. There are the tears of joy when people did not realize that they could get to this point.
Mhm.
Everyone on my team is trained as a professional organizer. We do not use extra sets of hands, so everyone is
Love
caring
that.
and wants to help the client. But it's interesting. Some of the most shocking things are, one of the most common questions I get is, well, we're going to do this, but what about my other half? They're not quite on board. And so my standard response to that is, let's start, and after the first day, let's reassess and see where we are. And a lot of times the spouse, significant other, whoever it might be, is like, okay, now I want my space done too. So that's a very normal reaction. A lot of times, if we're doing an estate clearing, we're dealing with the children who are either moving their parents to assisted living or
Mhm.
someone has passed away, and they're so overwhelmed by a lifetime of things that they really just don't know where to start.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of gratitude in those situations as well, because we're fortunate to have big homes here and they're full. And
Yeah.
so yes, so there's a lot of nice surprises at the end of the things that we do.
Obviously, we love working with you guys. So I'm curious about why you like working with Bryan Realty Group and if there's anything that you've experienced with us that maybe you haven't experienced with others.
We love working with Bryan Realty Group, mainly because your agents are fabulous. You all are organized. You have a plan. You call us, it's very succinct. We know what we need to get done, and we get out there and meet with you, meet with the client, and get the client to where they need to be.
Excellent. We always like that. So I hear more and more companies and people getting into this space. And so I'm curious about what sets you apart from the others that are in the organizing industry and organizing space.
What sets us apart is that we are entering every client's home with an open mindset and a willingness to help them get to where they need to be. So, other organizing companies have very systematic steps that they take to organize a kitchen, a master closet, an attic. We do not approach our clients in that way. We approach everyone and want to meet them where they need to be, where they currently are, and to get them where they need to be. And I think that's very important.
Hmm.
So, we can make a plan that we're going to start on this room and then move to this room and then move to that room. And if they wake up the next morning and decide that's not going to be the most beneficial thing for them, we are going to flex and change. We're not going to stick to a script and force them into a situation that doesn't make sense for them, because so much of what we do is alleviating stress, saving money from overbuying. We need that client to feel great in the end. And the interesting thing about what we do is what makes them feel great, what gets them to the finish line, isn't necessarily what we would do.
Hmm.
So it's
That's a great
really
point.
important that we listen and we flex as we need to when we're
Hmm.
with a client, because we don't every client that we have does not need to have a Pinterest perfect pantry. That isn't some people's goal, and so we don't walk in assuming that's what they want. We're going to meet them where they are and help them get to where they want to be.
Love that. Absolutely love that. We talked a little bit about real estate transactions and that this isn't just for real estate, it's really for
Correct.
everyone. But I also have the question about for real estate professionals and in a transaction, can you give us a little bit more detail around specifically what you would offer real estate professionals?
Sure. So for real estate professionals, we will do everything from the initial declutter before you're going to list it, staging, which usually involves some packing. So there's an extra benefit to the client. We're not just going to, declutter and stick things in a closet. We want to make sure that we're making steps forward to them moving. We coordinate all the move logistics. We can help them unpack on the other side. So we can do the full transaction and help you and your clients in any way that you need help with the move.
I love that. And one of the things that I've talked to my clients about too is as you pack them, you have already seen the house they're moving to, and you already have a plan for where things are going to go in the new house. And
Exactly.
so you are able to get people into the new homes much more quickly. And even if you focus on one or two rooms, maybe the kitchen and the primary bedroom, that gets them situated very quickly for their first night and first day in their new home.
Exactly. There is nothing better than moving and being set up and ready to go on the
Yes.
first day. And that's another thing where people are very surprised that we can do that for them. But we've been doing it for a long time. We have a way that we do things, and it just makes a move so much easier. I mean,
Moves are
it's
hard.
hard. Yeah, moves are hard for everyone. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of stress. And to be able to have your bed set up and sleep in your bed the first night or cook a meal if you wanted to is not something that people are used to. So that really, really helps during a move.
That's great. Awesome. And I know in terms of pricing and costs, there are different budgets. So are there any guidelines or high level kind of estimates or range that you could give us for these kinds of services?
So we typically don't estimate until we see the space because it's very, very hard for us to judge. Everything is really based on volume. So I need to see if your kitchen cabinets are bare, if your kitchen cabinets look normal, or if things fall out when I open them up. That is really what dictates total cost. But anyone, even someone on a budget, can do a piece. Like you were saying, we do a lot of what we call quick packs, where we take a kitchen and we move it over for them, and the plates go right into the new cabinet, the glasses go right into the new cabinets. Same thing with master closet, master bath, so that when you're getting there and everything is chaotic on move day, you are pretty much set up. Because what happens is, when people are using traditional movers to pack, the labels aren't great. Um, you know, we organize before we pack, so all the books are together, all the decor is together, all the lamps are together. When movers pack, they're packing based on room. So what happens is, you get to the other side, you're in your new home, and you're unpacking books and decor when what you need is a cup to drink out of and some sheets. And so it's just a very, very different process.
Very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. How about hoarding? We see different situations at times where we get into a home and there's really little pathways. How do you handle hoarding situations or those kind of environments?
So hoarding is really an entirely different subject than organizing. Hoarding is, again, a trauma response. And so when there's a hoarding situation, typically you need a psychiatrist on staff, you need clean out company on staff, you do need organizers, but there are organizers that are professionally trained to be hoarding specialists. And that's really, really important, because what you don't want to do is go in and work with a hoarder in the wrong way, meaning, telling them what we think is obvious. That's trash, we're throwing that away. They have kept it because they don't see it as trash. And so psychologically, you can do a lot of damage. So typically, when we go into a hoarder's home, we call in a hoarding specialist and they assemble their team to take care of that.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Curious about tips and also mistakes that people make in terms of trying to declutter and organize. Can you walk us through some tips and then
Sure.
maybe some pitfalls and mistakes that people make
Sure.
to watch out for?
So, a few tips with organizing. The biggest thing that I can tell you is that people bite off more than they can chew.
Mm-hmm.
So, people who call me and say, okay, I'm going to try to do this myself, I'm going to clean out my attic this weekend. My team and I all have this little chuckle, just like you did. And we're like, okay, that's great. We don't think that you're going to have success, but you can try. And this is the reason why, is because, again, when it's your own stuff, the decisions of what to keep and get rid of are very difficult, particularly in an attic. An attic for an organizer is called a room of deferred decisions. No one could decide at the moment. We're busy. That's normal. But no one could decide. So we said, okay, put it in the attic. So organizers call attics a room of deferred decisions. And what people do is they get this grandiose idea that they're going to block off this whole weekend and they're going to do it, but they don't realize the emotional toll that's required in order to assess every item and decide what you're going to keep and what you're going to get rid of, because all of those things in your attic, in my attic, we know where they came from, what they paid for it, who was with us when we bought it, where we wore it, all of the things that make those decisions 10 times harder.
Mm-hmm.
So the big mistake is that they don't break projects like that down into manageable pieces.
Mm-hmm.
It's really not feasible to do most attics in a weekend. It would be better if you told me, I'm going to do the left wall of the attic on Saturday. I'm going to do, in 2 weeks later, I'm going to do the right wall. That's really the biggest thing. And it's the same with kitchen cabinets. People say, I'm gonna clean out my kitchen. They get through 3 cabinets, or they hit the junk drawer and they throw their hands up and they're like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. This is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So break it up into smaller pieces. That would be the biggest tip.
Okay, I
Yeah.
love that. Again, I think you've been to my house for this, or talked to Michael. And so that is tips and mistakes. You wrapped it all into
Yep.
one.
Yep.
Excellent. Curious about the most underrated tool or process that people should be using and are not.
Tool or process. So I would say the tool that we use the most, particularly in new construction homes, are drawer dividers.
Ooh.
So they are expandable to fit, but what is happening is, as we build these new kitchens, our drawers have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger over the years, and when you're moving, you're in a stressful situation. You probably, if you're not using an organizer, your family is helping, your friends are helping, someone's helping, and the goal is to get rid of the boxes. And if the goal is to get rid of the boxes, then people are shoving things in random places. Those drawer dividers really help segregate categories so that that is the home for that category. And moves are particularly notorious for, we go in and say, well, why is this stored here? Why are the coffee mugs all the way on the right and the coffee makers all the way on the left? And the typical answer is, I don't know, somebody put it there when we moved in.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really about using products like drawer dividers to think through where the home is and is it closest to where we use it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Anything else that you would like to add that we haven't covered, we haven't talked about, that would make sense for the viewers of the podcast to hear and see?
I just think that people in general are unaware of a lot of time that is wasted. So they say that people waste 6 weeks a year looking for misplaced items, and that's just incredible. That's just incredible. In a work environment, that equates, I think the latest statistic was like $89 billion a year at
Wow.
work is wasted with people just wandering around trying to find things. And so organization is so important, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's work, whether it's home. I mean, less stress, better productivity. We save people, first of all, we find more money that people, checks and cash that people don't even know they have.
Wow.
But in a business environment, it's, why do we have 1 million post-its? Well, nobody knew that we had 100,000 there and 100,000 there and
And you
100,000
just
there.
keep buying them.
And you just keep buying them. So I think it's really important to understand that organization, taking the time to do it, investing in doing it, whether it's your home or your business, is extremely important. It's going to save you money, it's going to save you time, and you're going to be less stressed.
I love that. Totally worth the investment.
Absolutely.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. And I love what you guys do and how you help our clients and how you help us. So we really appreciate you guys.
Thank you. We're happy to do it.
Thank you.